Imagine this. It's late at night, and you're lying in bed. The house is quiet, but suddenly you hear something strange. A soft scratching sound coming from under the floor. You tell yourself it's nothing, but deep down, you can't shake the feeling that something's not right. What if these strange moments, the ones that make you feel uneasy, aren't coincidences? What if there's something lurking right beneath the surface, something you're not supposed to see? Hello everyone, I'm Dusky Nights, and I bring you real-life horror stories that will help you fall asleep. But before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This happened when I was just a kid, around 11 years old. I grew up in a small, quiet town with my mom, dad, and little brother. Our house was modest, tucked away at the end of the street, far from the chaos of the world. But there was one house across the street that always stood out to me, the Mason house. Tyler, my best friend, lived there. He had a mom, a dad, and an older sister. At least, that's what I thought. Tyler's family was different. The Mason house wasn't like ours. It was filled with tension, confusion, and chaos that always seemed to simmer just below the surface. Tyler's dad, Mr. Mason, was an alcoholic. He'd spend most of his days drinking, yelling at his wife, and disappearing into his world of bottles. Mrs. Mason, on the other hand, was always on edge. Her voice was sharp, her temper unpredictable, always ready to snap. And then there was Tyler's sister, Amber, always locked in her room, blasting loud music, complaining about everything, and sneering at the world around her. It was as if they were trapped in their own toxic cycle. But this wasn't the focus of my story. No, the focus is what happened one night that changed everything. It all started like any other night. I was in bed trying to fall asleep when the urgent need to use the bathroom woke me up. My room was dark, and the house was silent, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards. As I made my way across the hallway, I passed by the window. That's when I saw the lights in Tyler's house were still on. I didn't think much of it. Tyler had always been a night owl, but something felt off. It wasn't normal for their house to be so alive at this hour. When I returned from the bathroom, I noticed something strange. Mrs. Mason was standing in her backyard, calling out for the cat. She'd always been the one to search for it when it ran away, so I wasn't surprised to see her out there. The only thing that seemed odd was how long she stood in the yard, calling for the cat in that strange, almost frantic tone. It was a cold night, and the wind rustled the trees, making the night feel eerie. Mrs. Mason wore her usual robe, the kind that reminded me of the sitcom moms from old TV shows. Her silhouette looked strange against the dim light of the house, and I felt something stir in my chest, a feeling I couldn't explain, a growing sense of dread. I tried to shake it off, but then a loud metallic clang echoed from the back of the house. I froze. It wasn't the sound of a cat. It was something heavier, something that shouldn't have been there. The sound was sharp and jarring, and it sent a cold shiver up my spine. Mrs. Mason paused, clearly hearing it too. For a moment, she hesitated, and I thought she might turn back inside. But she didn't. Instead, she walked toward the sound, her footsteps slow and deliberate, as if she was determined to find out what was causing the noise. I didn't like it. A sudden, overwhelming fear gripped me. I didn't want her to go. I felt as though something terrible, was waiting for her out there in the dark. I couldn't explain it, but my gut told me it was wrong. And then I heard it. A scream. Mrs. Mason screamed. A sound filled with pure terror, raw and agonizing. It wasn't just a scream of fear. It was a scream of pain. Something had happened to her, and it was too awful to comprehend. Mr. Mason burst out of the front door, running toward the backyard, his own scream joining hers. His voice was full of despair and terror, just like hers. I could hear his cries echoing through the quiet night. And then silence. Complete silence. The silence wasn't normal. It wasn't just quiet. It was suffocating. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. The wind had stopped. The trees had ceased their rustling. And there was no other sound in the street. The Mason house, which had been full of life moments before, now sat in complete stillness. The lights remained on, casting a dim, almost unnatural glow from the windows. I couldn't move. I wanted to look away, to shut the curtains, to block out the horror that was unfolding across the street. But I couldn't. It was like something was holding me there, frozen, unable to escape. And then, one by one, the lights in the house began to turn off. Tyler's room first, then his parents' room, then the living room, and finally the kitchen. The house went dark, but it wasn't peaceful. It wasn't a quiet, comforting darkness. It was heavy, oppressive. I thought it was over, but then, just as I thought I could breathe again, the living room light flickered back on. I could see the silhouette of Mrs. Mason standing there, motionless. Her face was hidden in shadow, but I knew it was her. She was staring right at me through the window. My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away from the window. The door of the house slammed shut with a loud bang, and I bolted to my room, throwing myself under the covers. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but I could feel her eyes on me. Even under the blankets, I couldn't escape the sensation that she was still watching me. The next morning, everything felt too calm, too normal. I could hardly believe what had happened. I went to the window, half expecting to see signs of the nightmare from the night before, but everything seemed too perfect. The Mason house looked normal, too normal. Mrs. Mason was outside watering flowers in the garden, flowers that had been dry and wilted the day before. She was smiling, wearing the same robe as she always wore, her movements slow and serene. Tyler's dad was mowing the lawn, smiling and whistling, a complete contrast to the man I had heard screaming in agony just hours before. And then there was Amber, Tyler's older sister, the rebellious teenager who used to blast music from her room all day, the one who never left the house unless she had to. She was sitting on the porch, wearing a flowery dress, brushing her hair, and reading a magazine like it was just another sunny morning. It looked like a scene from an old commercial. Too perfect, too wrong. Mrs. Mason saw me through the window and waved, that same wide, unnerving smile plastered on her face. I quickly shut the curtain and backed away. I could still feel her gaze on me, even through the thick fabric of the curtains. At breakfast, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. I asked my parents, "Didn't you hear anything last night? The screams, the noise." They all looked at me like I was crazy. "What do you mean?" my mom asked, confused. "I swear I heard screams from the Mason house. Mrs. Mason was yelling, and then Mr. Mason screamed too," I explained. My mom laughed softly, brushing it off. "Must have been a dream, sweetheart." But then my dad spoke up, his voice serious. "Now that you mention it, their house has been strange lately." My mom nodded. "Yeah, this morning, when I went to get the paper, they were different. Too nice. And no fights," my dad added, shaking his head. "They became the perfect family overnight," my mom said, almost chuckling. But I didn't laugh. I knew something was wrong. The way they acted, too nice, too perfect, was all wrong. I didn't believe in coincidences, not after what I had witnessed, and I could feel it in my bones. Something had changed in that house, something dark. Tyler showed up later that day, asking if I wanted to play. I agreed, hoping maybe I could get some answers. As we walked down the street, I glanced back at the Mason house. Mrs. Mason was standing on the porch, watching us, that unsettling smile still plastered on her face. Amber was beside her, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Tyler's mom called out to him, her voice calm and serene, almost too calm. "Where are you going, honey?" "We're going to the park, Mommy," Tyler replied, smiling at her. Amber, who had always stayed behind, suddenly spoke up. "Can I come with you, little brother?" I froze. Amber never wanted to leave the house. She was always locked in her room, avoiding everyone. The change in her behavior was too drastic, too sudden. Tyler hesitated, then smiled awkwardly. "No need. We're just going to play a bit." We made our way to the park, and for a brief moment, everything felt normal. We played on the swings, tossed stones into the pond, and raced each other to the other side, but something was off. Tyler was acting different. He kept glancing around, as if someone was watching him. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I asked Tyler if he thought his family was acting weird, and he just looked at me confused. "What do you mean?" "They're different, happier, nicer, too perfect," I said, trying to explain. "And last night, I heard Mrs. Mason scream. There was this loud noise, like something was wrong." Tyler just shook his head. "Maybe they're just trying to be a better family." It didn't make sense. It couldn't be that simple. And yet, Tyler didn't seem to believe me. He didn't hear the screams, didn't notice the strange behavior of his family. It was like I was the only one who could see it. The feeling of being watched crept up on me again, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. We went home in silence, but I felt that presence following me, watching me. I couldn't shake it. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night again. I felt that pull toward the window, that horrible, unshakable compulsion to look outside. And there he was, Mr. Mason, standing on the lawn, staring at me. His face was blank, unreadable, his eyes cold and distant. I quickly backed away from the window, heart pounding. I crawled under the covers, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. I could still feel him, could still feel the presence of something lurking just beyond the veil of sleep. That's when I heard it. A creak. A soft, deliberate creak from behind me. I wasn't alone. I could feel it, a presence just behind me waiting for me to turn around. I didn't. I couldn't. The air grew thick with dread, and my heart raced. Something was wrong in that house across the street. Something dark, and whatever it wasn't done with me yet. After the terrifying events of the past few nights, sleep had become an impossible luxury. The fear clung to me like a suffocating fog, seeping into my every waking moment. It wasn't just the dark, eerie house across the street, but the constant feeling that something was wrong in the air. The unease gnawed at my insides, keeping me wide-eyed in bed, no matter how exhausted I was. It wasn't the kind of fear you could shake off. It stayed with you, burrowing into your thoughts like a parasite. When I sat down for breakfast the next morning, I could feel my parents watching me carefully. My mom's gaze lingered on me with concern. "What's wrong? You look pale," she asked, her voice tinged with worry. I shrugged, trying to brush it off. "Just woke up from a nightmare and there was a spider on my head. Nothing big." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it was far from the truth. I didn't dare tell her about what had happened the night before. The way Mr. Mason had stared at me from his backyard, his eyes piercing through the darkness. I didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't want to admit how deeply it had unsettled me. The day outside was as gray as the mood in my house. The sky was thick with clouds, the kind of dreary weather that drained every bit of energy from your body. It felt as if the day was holding its breath, waiting for something that never came. The world outside looked like it had been drained of color, leaving everything muted and dull. I tried to focus on the day ahead, but my mind kept drifting back to the events that had happened. The more I thought about the Masons, the more disconnected I felt from everything around me. I was sinking deeper into darker thoughts that made my stomach churn and my heart race. My mom's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. "I need you to deliver a package to Tyler's house," she said, snapping me back to reality. "They delivered it by mistake." I froze. The thought of going to their house, seeing them, after the strange and unsettling events of the past few days made my heart thud in my chest. I could feel the fear rising in my throat, choking me. I didn't want to go back there, not after everything I had seen, but I couldn't say no to my mom. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. They lived right across the street. I'd knock on the door, hand them the package, and leave. No need to talk. No need to get involved. Right? But standing in front of the Mason house was a different feeling. The house, once so ordinary, now felt like a dark cave. A place where shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. It was as if the very walls of the house had absorbed the darkness from the night before. I stepped outside, the cold wind hitting my face, carrying with it an eerie, almost inaudible whisper. My feet felt heavy as I walked across the street, each step echoing in my mind. The yard in front of the Mason house was empty. The house loomed ahead, its dark windows staring back at me like hollow eyes. As I approached, I felt a strange tug in the air, like something was pulling me toward the door. It was slightly ajar, as if it were waiting for me to walk in. But something inside me screamed to stay away. I hesitated, my hand hovering in the air, unsure if I should knock or just leave. Before I could make a decision, the door creaked open on its own, and there she was, Mrs. Mason. She stepped out from behind the door, her face painted with that unnerving smile. It was the same smile she had worn the night before when I saw her, but this time it was even more forced, like she was trying too hard to appear normal. She was dressed in a floral dress, a bit too fancy for such a gray, ordinary day. Her hair was styled perfectly, and she had on just enough makeup to make her look more like a magazine cover than a real person. It was as if she were trying to look like everything was perfect, when nothing about this situation felt right. "Hi, dear. What did you bring for us?" she asked, her voice too sweet, too rehearsed. Her tone made my skin crawl. I handed her the package, barely able to keep my voice steady. "My mom asked me to deliver this. It was a mistake," I said, trying to keep it short, trying to avoid any unnecessary conversation. But she didn't take the package and leave. Instead, she took a step closer, her smile widening. "Don't you want to come in for a minute? Tyler's inside. You could hang out with him. I'm sure you'd have fun." My heart sank. Tyler was the only normal one in that house, and even he seemed different. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to be near them, near her, near him. The thought of stepping inside that house made me feel like I was walking into a trap. "No, thanks. I'm fine. I just need to go," I stammered, my legs already turning toward the street, ready to leave. But then I felt it, the shift in the air. A shadow moved behind me, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was him, Mr. Mason. He had appeared from nowhere. One moment, he wasn't there, and the next, he was standing right behind me. His tall, broad frame loomed over me, and his eyes were locked onto mine. The intensity in his gaze made my blood run cold. He didn't speak right away, just stood there, his gaze unwavering. "Why not come in?" he said finally, his voice calm, but with an undercurrent of something darker. "I'm sure Tyler would like the visit." I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, but my body wouldn't obey me. I was paralyzed in place, caught in his stare, unable to move. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my breath catching in my throat. Mrs. Mason stayed by my side, her smile never wavering, as if nothing was wrong. But everything about this situation felt wrong. So wrong. Her presence, the way her hand brushed against my shoulder, the chill in the air, it all felt unnatural. Her fingers were cold, too cold. It was like she wasn't even real. "You're really going to refuse such a kind invitation?" she said, her voice sweet, but there was an edge to it. Her words felt like a command, not a suggestion. Mr. Mason stepped forward, just a little, but enough to make me stumble back. I could feel my breath hitch in my chest. The space between us seemed to shrink, suffocating me. I wanted to say something, anything, to get out of there, but my voice failed me. I turned quickly, my feet moving, without my mind giving the command. "Sorry," I mumbled, my voice barely a whisper. "My mom. She asked me to come back soon." I didn't wait for a response. I turned on my heel and started walking, my legs moving faster than they should have. But I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me, watching my every move. The moment I crossed the street, I felt a weight lift off my chest, but it didn't last. The image of Mrs. Mason's smile, Mr. Mason's unblinking stare stayed with me. They were in my mind, haunting me. I slammed the door shut behind me as soon as I was inside. My breath came in shallow gasps. I slid down the door, my back pressed against the cold wood. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the world growing darker. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I couldn't let anyone see how shaken I was. My mom appeared in the hallway, concern etched on her face. "Son, you took a while. Everything okay?" I nodded quickly, my eyes not meeting hers. "I delivered the package. I was just coming back," I said, my voice trembling. She didn't push me, thankfully. She must have noticed the look in my eyes. "Go take a warm bath, okay? I'll make something to eat." I didn't argue. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and I tried to wash away the cold that had settled in my bones. But even under the hot water, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The walls felt too close. The silence was too heavy. I breathed deeply, telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But when I closed my eyes, I could still feel their eyes on me, watching. When I finally went back to my room, I locked the door again. But no matter how many locks I turned, I couldn't escape the feeling that they were still watching. Hours later, there was a knock on my bedroom door. My mom's voice came through the wood, her tone softer this time. "Son, I need to talk to you." I opened the door, trying to look calm, but inside I was anything but. She told me that the Masons had apologized. They said they hadn't meant to scare me and had suggested I come over for a sleepover with Tyler. It sounded too good to be true. I tried to act normal. "Okay," I said, but the unease settled deeper into my stomach. I got ready, putting on a comfortable t-shirt and pants, though the knot in my throat wouldn't loosen. When I heard the doorbell ring, I jumped. I peeked through the window and saw Tyler standing there with his backpack. But behind him stood his family, all smiling, that same smile, that same unnatural smile. Did this story give you chills? Have you ever experienced something strange, eerie, or downright terrifying that you just couldn't explain? We want to hear your story. Submit your real-life horror experiences to us at duskynights145@gmail.com and get a chance to have your story featured on our channel. Don't keep the fear to yourself. Share it with us, and let's dive into the darkness together. We can't wait to hear from you.